Welcome to From Concept to Creation, our YouTube part 2 of our mini series. Yesterday, we talked about content discovery. And on today, I'm going to take you through a journey of content design. And we're going to get started right away so that you can start to develop your content and turn it into something that's profitable and purposeful for your audience. Part 2 mini-series, we're going to take a journey and taking a look at the objectives and how do we create a value proposition so that when people take a look at your content that you have produced, they will automatically see how valuable it is to them so that they can then invest in what it is that you've created. So with that, we're going to talk about content design. I want you to think of this phase of the mini-series as an architectural blueprint. When an architect designs a blueprint, it actually shows you the framework of the outcome of what's going to take place in the future. So what you're doing now is after you've discovered who your audience is and what is it that you're going to actually create from your content discovery series, you now identify the outline and the outcomes of the value that you're going to provide to your audience. Well, what do you mean, Dr. Kimberly? First of all, you got to start with the problem you're trying to solve. I want you to know that the problem builds the objectives of your content. Oftentimes people struggle with objectives, but an objective is pretty much the outcome of what you want your audience to receive as a result of being a part of your class, your session, your retreat, or taking part in reading, studying, or even in your content. And so you want to know that the objective is the outcome. And most people struggle with creating objectives because they want to remain general. Your objective should be specific to what it is that you want your audience to walk away with. So for example, do you want them to have increased knowledge? Do you want them to have increased profit? Will they learn a new system? Will they gain experience? Will they have an increased skill? Oftentimes people generalize objectives in the form of, by the time you leave, they will be, the students or the learners or the participants or my clients would have discussed, or they will have an understanding. Well, I challenge you to get a little bit more specific in my clients when it comes to designing content. The objectives are to actually identify the outcomes that are particular and is specific to your audience. Because in order to create value, your outcomes must have the value creation. And I want you to be very specific and less general around what is it that your content will produce for your audience. Your outcomes provide the value. And value is what people are looking for in order to say, yes, I want to invest. Yes, that course is for me. If they know the value up front, then that means they know the outcome that they should receive by the end of the experience they've had or the encounter with your particular content. So what's the definition of value creation? It is the performance of actions that increase the worth of goods, services, or even a business. I want you all to understand the value creation is the performance of action. That means whatever it is that your content is doing, it should have an outcome. There should be an action following it so that others can see the particular value that that good or that service or your business will provide. So for example, if you are putting together content for a retreat, there are several retreats that are going on in the world, but what is it that your audience, your participants will walk away with when it comes to the outcome? So you always build your content first with the outcomes, because creating value for your customers helps you sell the products and the services. And remember, I said earlier in part 1 that we don't create products to sell or services to sell. We create value so that others can actually purchase it and invest in themselves, not necessarily in your business. So the content and the concept that you have in mind, you're going to take it through a process of identifying what problem am I trying to solve? And that takes place in the discovery. So if you've taken part 1 of this mini series and you've now discovered what problem you're trying to solve, building your content design is where it begins, is identifying the problem and then write your objectives as it relates to the outcomes you want for your audience. Now we talk about value proposition and creating that. Your value proposition is a promise of value to be delivered, communicated, and acknowledged. When you think about it, it is a belief from the customer about how you will deliver that thing. Like, what is it that they would walk away with? And so the value proposition is not about how good your content is. It is about how well you communicated the value, the outcomes of your content to your particular potential client. And so it's not enough to take a look and say, hey, come purchase my program, come join my retreat, buy my book, buy my journal, listen to my podcast. It is about creating value so that you begin with the end in mind. I always tell my clients, your objectives should be the outcome. It should be the ending. It should be the value proposition. And so by the time you finish this mini series, you will be able to identify how to properly write an objective that will create value for your clients. See? That's how I'm creating a value proposition for you to take part 2. When we think about that, I want you to understand that creating value is not about you. It's about who you serve. And so you have to identify what type of value are you presenting to your particular audience or client. And I want to walk you through the 6 areas in which I've identified in this particular series that's going to help you create value. You have to understand who your audience is in order to create objectives that are valuable for them. And that takes place in part 1, which is discovering the content. That's going to help you identify your market, your client. And once you do that, you now have to say, here is my problem. Here are the outcomes, the value of the people that I am providing this service to or this content for. And you did identify where is it that you're doing that. So is it for service? Is it information? Is it knowledge that they're going to get? What about the delivery? How convenient is your particular content? What about the experiences that they're going to get? So you want to think in terms of what experience are you creating for your client that's going to bring value in your outcomes? Because if you are trying to sell a truck, a two-person truck to a 4-person family, you've missed the value proposition. So I want you to think in terms of the service. How frequent will this be for your clients? Is it the personalization of it? Is it customized? The reliability, how often will this happen, and what's proven around what you're going to provide them? Is your content empowering or engaging, or is it going to educate them? You have to speak in terms of how much value will your clients walk away with, and it will result in a client outcome. Not about how great of a writer you are, or how great of a problem solver or consultant, coach, or speaker you are. It's all about the end result of designing the outcomes in such a way that your audience finds value. Will they have networking opportunities? You see, that's an experience. What type of environment will it be in? Sometimes people want a close-knit environment, and that particular outcome will actually be valuable to some individual clients that you have, versus if it's a 500-person live course, then there's others who may not find as much value. So when you are targeting your particular audience or your particular client with the concept that you have in mind and you're creating your content, you want to make sure that your content speaks to the audience and what is it that they want and what they need. This is how you create value proposition. So when you talk about from concept to creation, I tell you that we take our audience and my client, you, through a process of determining what's your value proposition. And so this, again, I said, is a 16-hour, 2 to 3 day course when we talk about having you look through your own concepts and developing your content. I take you through the full process of doing so, and I help you all identify what's your value proposition. So I want you to take the time in this mini series and determine what is your value proposition based on the concept that you have and as you design your content. So you want to look at this particular model that I've created. This is what you're offering. If you look at the top here, this is what you're offering, right? Here are the marketplace offerings. That means this is the competition. These are the things that are going on in the market, in the same market that you are in, and your clients may sit there. They may buy things in this market. And then here are your customer needs, which you've discovered in part 1 of this mini series for your content discovery. So here is where you take a look at the customer's needs. What are you offering? And what's the market offering? And somewhere here in the middle, you take advantage of the value proposition. You got to connect the dots on what it is that you have to offer based on your customer's needs that's going to be so unique and different from the marketplace that your actual clients are in right now. So I asked you in part 2 of this mini series, what's your value proposition? As we think about creating outcomes by design, many people struggle with writing really good objectives that are valuable to their audience. I will not stop saying the term value proposition, because that is how you create content by design. This is how you get the outcomes and you get people raving, your audience, your market, your potential clients to actually take on your course, to actually identify with you as it relates to, I want to attend this session, the incubator, the mastermind, I want to read their book, I want to listen to their podcast. You have to have outcomes by design. So how do you write good objectives? This information is free, and I share with you all that there will be a lot of individuals, creative speakers, trainers, those who are in business owners, entrepreneurs who are delivering content, but they're not clear on their objectives. The first thing I look at is, what am I getting from this particular content? All right, so objectives are clear, they're concise, and they are specific statements describing behaviors. Behaviors are actions. What is it that we're going to do? So you want to be very clear, concise, and specific regarding the behavior. If you're going to discuss something, understand something, identify, walk away with 3 areas, or walk away with a framework, like you have to identify using clarity the behavior that your audience is going to walk away with as a result of being engaged and interacting with your content. There are only a few short bullet points per learning is necessary. We don't want to get too wordy. You want to keep it very clear, very concise, and very specific using short bullet points. You don't need many. If you have a high value program, you want to make sure that the value proposition is seen early. And that means the objectives must show the value up front to your audience. Always remember, your objectives are specific and they are measurable. Stay away from the vague and general statements of, we're going to understand this, or we're going to discuss this, or we're going to identify certain areas. You want to be very specific. By the time you finish this particular mini series, you will be able to identify your value proposition for your content, and you will be able to identify clear, concise, and specific objectives that will describe behaviors that you can utilize for your content that your audience will find value in. Okay, so when I think about that, I want you to be very clear on what is it they're going to do. If they're going to learn 2 methods, you want to say, my client is going to learn 2 methodologies, or they're going to learn 2 strategies, or you're going to walk away with a profit approach. You got to be very specific in saying specifically what your participants will be able to do differently, or what is it that you're adding value to, even in your instructional activities, okay? It's not about what you will do. It's more so about what is it that your audience and your clients, or those particular people that you serve, will walk away with. So when you think about a sample, you always think about, at the end of this session, at the end of this training, at the end of this masterclass, by the time you finish this book, when you finish my ebook, or this ebook offers X, Y, and Z. You want to be very clear on what your objectives are, because it shows your value proposition. I hope you've enjoyed From Concept to Creation, our mini series part 2 on how to design your content, creating objectives that bring value to your audience. I'm Dr. Kimberly Ellison, and I'm excited that you've decided to join me on today. I look forward to our time together on tomorrow as we walk into our content development mini-series. Make sure that you share this information with other creatives that you know would find value in the outcomes by design. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow right here on my YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on social media at Dr. Kimberly Ellison on Facebook and Instagram, and Dr. K. Ellison on Twitter. Again, I look forward to you joining me on our final session on our From Concept to Creation mini-series. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about content development. See you then.